we're at 6 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. All right. The meeting's called to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Scribner? Here. Councilmember Wiggins? Here. Councilmember Pogencourt? Here. Mayor Pro Tem Davies?
Here.
And Mayor Smith?
Here.
Everyone is present. Thank you.
Thank you. And our invocation this evening, Pastor Cottle.
Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, I think many of us in this room today are saddened by the events in Afghanistan. So I just want to start by asking your protection on women and children and those who may be facing imminent religious persecution in those areas. Pray that you would give world leaders wisdom as to how to deal with this in a peaceful, effective manner. And our hearts are broken by what we see there, even though we're not experiencing that firsthand. It does also make me incredibly thankful for this, that we get to have this kind of forum to leaders we can trust, that we believe in, and that are listening to you for guidance. And so we just pray for tonight's proceedings. While I'm sure there's problems around here, they're nothing compared to that. So we're very thankful and just pray that you would guide these hands and hearts and minds as we look forward to this. And again, thank you for allowing us to be here tonight. I'm asking in your name. Amen.
Thank you. Christina, would you lead for the pledge tonight?
I would. Join me. Hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we begin, we have two items, or one item? One item to add to the agenda that came for our attention after the posting of the agenda.
Yeah, it came up basically this morning, Mr. Mayor. There's an application for RSTP funding that didn't get received by Kern Cobb from us. We just found out about it today. We've got to get a resolution filed with Kern Cobb immediately or we'll lose out. So we can't wait until the next meeting. There's a provision in the Brown Act allowing us to put this matter on the agenda without further notice, provided we make findings that the matter came up after the posting of the agenda and has to be taken care of before the next meeting. So we'll need a motion to that effect to get it on the agenda, and then we can discuss it as a part of the agenda.
All right.
It takes a 4/5 vote, so all of you will need to.
Do I have a motion?
So moved as directed by staff.
All right.
I'll second.
A motion and a second to add the item. All in favor say aye, or have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Scribner?
Yes.
Councilmember Wiggins?
Yes.
Councilmember Pogencourt? Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Davies?
Yes.
And Mayor Smith?
Yes.
It was a 5-0 vote to add the RSTP item.
And that item will be taken up.
Staff would ask for that to be effectively 6B agenda.
All right. And it is. Thank you. Consent agenda. All items are listed with an asterisk, considered routine, non-controversial. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to have a consent agenda item removed for separate discussion? Council, anybody? All right, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Scribner?
Yes.
Councilmember Wiggins?
Yes.
Councilmember Pogencourt? Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Davies?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Yes.
There's a 5-0 vote to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. The next item is audience oral written communication. We welcome any comments that's under our jurisdiction. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to bring before the council some item that's not on the agenda this evening? Yes, good evening. If you would also, if you're going to speak at some point, fill out speaker cards, and so we can get in touch with anyone, not this second, but, and then we'll allow you 3 minutes. Okay, go ahead.
Awesome, good evening. My name is Corey Torres with the Park District. I just wanted to, on behalf of the Park District, thank the City of Tehachapi for their sponsorship and being the presenting sponsor for the Tehachapi Old Timers event. It was a great event, and Mayor Pro Tem Davies was the MC of the day. I believe there are some other old timers in the room tonight. It was a lovely event in the park. Lovely event in the park. It means so much to the people of Tehachapi, so I just want, on behalf of the district, just formally thank the City of Tehachapi for your partnership. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comments for items not on the agenda? All right, seeing none. Item number 4, disbursements, bills, and plans for RSI Petroleum.
Mayor Smith, I need to recuse myself because I'm an employee of RSI Petroleum.
All right, we'll wait. All right. This is for disbursements, bills, and claims for RSI Petroleum. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to make a comment on this item? Anyone on the council? Do I have a motion to approve?
Make that motion.
I'll second.
A motion and second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Scrivener?
Yes.
Councilmember Williams?
Yes.
Councilmember Cottoncourt? Yes. And Mayor Smith?
Yes.
It was a 4-1 to approve the RSI item with an abstention from Mayor Pro Tem Davies. Thank you.
Thank you. Assistant to the city manager's report, item 6. Corey?
Thank you, Mayor Smith and council members. Tonight, I have before you, we've spoken about this before, but this is actually the agreement for illegal dumping resource funds from the county of Kern. As the council was aware, earlier this year, Kern County Public Works brought forth a proposal to increase the land use fee to provide additional funding to improve illegal dumping situations throughout Kern County. A portion of that funding through the Prop 218 process was allocated to cities based on the amount of road mileage maintained. In February of this year, the council voted to send a letter of support to the Board of Supervisors in favor of conducting that Prop 218 process. That public process was conducted, a hearing held, and the proposal was approved by the Board of Supervisors on May 25th, 2021. The land use fee was increased countywide for both single-family and multi-family homes. Now with that complete, the county has prepared an agreement to establish the terms and timing of the payments to the city of Tehachapi for the collection of the additional fee. These funds may be used for illegal dumping mitigation programs, anything like education, obviously eradication, which includes the physical removal of illegal dumping or littering from the areas in the city's jurisdiction, and then enforcement programs as well. The remaining terms are included in the attached agreement. In addition, the incorporated cities in Kern County did ask for and received landfill gate fee waivers from the county. We were given the limited amount of money that's brought forth, and the county does charge in order for operations a tipping fee or a gate fee at the landfill. We thought if we were spending that on gate fees and not actually spending that on picking up litter or illegal dumping, that money wouldn't go as far. The county was very receptive to that, and they've included that proposal as well. So if we do have an illegal dumping situation or a project or something that we identify as part of this process, they will waive those gate fees at the landfill for us. So that will be helpful. The total amount, the city will receive an additional $57,265 a year from the land use fee increase for the fiscal year 2021-22. We'll get 2 payments in January or June, and also we'll be required to submit annual reports about the use of these funds to the county as per this agreement. We are working on what that will look like, what we will probably do with that. Some of that has been discussed, potentially funding a person or people to help with litter efforts. Fortunately, we don't have a huge problem, but there are certain problem areas that we want to focus on, and this money will help us do so. So as a result of that, staff's recommendation is to approve the agreement between the County of Kern and the City of Tehachapi for illegal dumping resource funds and authorize the mayor to sign. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Corey. Is there anyone in the public who has a question on this item? Any discussion from the council? Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Scrivener?
Yes.
Councilmember Wiggins?
Yes.
Councilmember Cotton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davies?
Yes.
And Mayor Smith.
Yes.
It was a 5-0 vote to approve the agreement between the County of Kern and the City of Tehachapi for the legal dumping resources funds and authorize the mayor to sign.
Thank you. Thank you. Item 6B, which was added to the agenda.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and council members. The first item I have for you tonight is the authorization for filing an application for the 2021 Regional Surface Transportation Program funding and committing the necessary local match and stating our assurance to complete the project. So every 2 years, the City of Tehachapi, as a member agency of the KernCog, is given an allocation fundamentally of RSTD funds. These are federal dollars that come down through the Highway Transportation Fund. And recent example, for instance, is the very next item on the council agenda is the award of the repaving of Snyder is RSTP funding. So we work very hard to utilize these. My apologies for the late notice on this item. Anyway, the item that we have for you tonight that is, if you guys will recall, we've been laying out a 10-year plan for joining various sources of road funding to do a more sustained campaign for road rehabilitation. So this project would be the next in that cycle, and we are suggesting that we direct these funds towards the repaving of Valley Boulevard or the rehabilitation of Valley Boulevard between Curry and Beach Street, which is just beaches a little bit west of Mountain View. Renovation of the vehicle lanes. Our initial estimate for this project is $380,000, and our minimum match requirement based upon a potential or an initial allocation, they're expecting to have $336,000 in funds for us, and we're required to produce 11.47% of the cost of the project, which is a match commitment on our part of $43,586. So the resolution is attached. On the last page, I did include a quick map of the area that we're proposing, which we think is a very worthy candidate for these funds. And therefore, my recommendation is that you adopt a resolution authorizing the filing of an application for Regional Surface Transportation Program funding and committing the necessary local match and stating the assurance to complete the project. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jay. Are there any comments on this from the public? Anyone from the council have a question?
Jay, how long will this project take, and when do they anticipate it starting if it's passed?
Yeah, so it's about it. The construction project, a project of this nature is pretty quick, typically only a 2 to 3 month construction period, but the funds would not be available and ready to go to construction for about 2 years, so it would be 2 summers from now.
Anyone else?
I'm just worried about the traffic situation since it's right there on Valley.
Yeah, that will be a challenge as we do the project, and but it's tough to pick those narrow, highly congested areas. Like we've got that one section between Mill and Curry that's like that. So we'll work through either a combination of a detour plan, or I foresee a situation where we might leave one lane open in the more critical direction and then detour the other lane. That's typically how we handle these narrower projects. Yeah. Or one option may be to do night work, which we haven't gone that far yet, but we'll consider that when we start design. So.
And would you explain why we can't use this on local streets?
Yeah, there's only, the city maintains what's known as a functional classification list. That's a formal map of the city's major streets as recognized by Caltrans, and these federal funds are limited only to the roads on the functional classification list. And that's why our larger program has been doing, like we just finished with the slurry seal in some of the neighborhoods. We're directing funds that can be used there, and maintaining these funds for our bigger streets and trying to utilize them in those locations.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Did we take a vote yet?
No.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Scrivener?
Yes.
Councilmember Wiggins?
Yes.
Councilmember Cotton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davies?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Yes.
It was a 5-0 vote to adopt a resolution authorizing the filing of an application for Regional Surface Transportation Program funding and committing the necessary local match and stating the assurance to complete the project.
Thank you. Item number 7, Jay.
Very good, thank you. Honorable Mayor and council members, the next item is a very similar project, but at a different stage. It's the Snyder Avenue Road Rehabilitation Project. So I think we've informed you that we were working hand in hand with first our ATP grant to put in curb, gutter, and sidewalk and complete that street, and that this project was going to be sequenced, hopefully in an intelligent way, to finish paving the road, and we were successful. We received authorization to proceed and construct this project from Caltrans as part of our RSTP program. The project seeks to rehab Snyder from Tehachapi to Valley Boulevard. That's the entire of the Snyder. It is the second of 2 projects in this area. The first one was the gap closure project, again, which we've seen and is busy doing its thing right now, but causing traffic, but we feel like it's definitely shaping up for what we hoped it would be. In June of this year, we advertised for this project. We opened bids on July 13th. The bid results are contained in the staff report. This is where I say that we were very successful. Our initial estimate for this project was over $300,000, and by sequencing it well, we provided an opportunity for a better bid environment. So the same contractor who happens to be working on the gap closure project chose to bid this project and provided us with the low bid for this project. So in compliance with the Public Contract Code, we undertook a review of the bids and confirmed that the bid from R.C. Becker & Son has been deemed to be responsive. Fiscal impact, again, the total grant budget for this project was $321,000 with a total reimbursement of $283,000. And we had to commit, again, 11.47%. That was the $37,000 match. And that match was going to come from SB1 funds. So because of the nature of the bid, we're in good shape, and staff is confident that we'll be able to execute this bid within the budgeted amount. We therefore recommend that you award the Snyder Avenue Road Rehabilitation Project to R.C. Becker & Son Incorporated in the amount of $234,581.09, and authorize the city manager to approve any necessary change orders up to the grant maximum of $321,225, and the balance there is listed in the staff report for construction. We did ask in this case for the maximum grant amount because we're able to go back to Caltrans and work with them to enhance, maybe thicken some of the pavement in areas to get a better product with the delta. And our match component of 11% is the same. So we get 88 cents on the dollar for every dollar of this grant money that we spend. So that's why our recommendation is to allow us to spend up to the entire grant amount, because it's worth it for us to do that. So that concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any comments from the public? Good project, and it's grant funding. It makes it really good. Any comments from the council?
Jay, do they have any idea when they're going to be finished, since school's in session and it's kind of a challenge?
Yes, I foresee that we have another 6 weeks or so on the gap closure project. They'll mostly be concentrating though on sidewalk at this point, so that's a lot less impactful to the vehicle traffic because they should be able to maintain the lane configuration that we have out there now. When we go to repave, that will be more impactful, but to repave a road of this nature is probably less than a week's worth of work. And so we'll do a large media blitz to let the world know. We'll let the neighbors know house to house if we need to, in order to clarify if we have any detours are in place. And we'll certainly be working with the school district to maintain access to the school at all times. So I expect another 6 weeks to 8 weeks or so on the sidewalk project. And then, as you guys may recall, R.C. Becker, actually, this is the third project they have with us. They also were successful in bidding the Davis and Green Street project here at the last council meeting. So we're working with them on a master schedule because they're going to want, for their own cost efficiency, to bring up the paving machine and knock all of them out in a very short period of time. That's where it gets really cost efficient for them. They pass that on to us. So we'll be working on that schedule, and we'll certainly let the public know.
Done for bad weather.
Yeah, let's hope. Well,
Yeah,
we could use the rain. I'm actually okay with hoping for rain.
Yeah,
but,
there you go. I want to get done before it turns. You know how that goes. So, yeah.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I so moved.
I'll second it.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Scrivener?
Yes.
Councilmember Wiggins?
Yes.
Councilmember Rosenford?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davies?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Yes.
It was a 5-0 vote to award the Snyder Avenue Road Rehabilitation Project to R.C. Becker & Son Incorporated in the amount of $234,581.09, and authorize the city manager to approve any necessary change orders up to the grant maximum of $321,225 or $86,643.91 for construction.
Thank you. Item number 8 is a public hearing for plan development number 2019-01, amendment number 5, final master development plan for Sage Ranch.
Mayor Smith, because of a pledge gift to our hospital, out of an abundance of caution, I'm going to recuse myself from this item.
All right then, Jay? All right, do we want to open the hearing first, Mayor Smith? Do we
Yes,
open
I
it
do, actually. So we will open the public hearing. Were there any correspondence?
Yes, so there was a notice of public hearing published in the Tehachapi News on August 11th, August 11th. And then also received correspondence that is part of your packets, and that was what was received prior to publication of the agenda. After publication of the agenda, correspondence received is on the dais for each of you, and also on display in the back.
All right, thank you. So at this time, we'll have the staff report, and then we'll receive public comment after that, right?
Okay, you all ready? So I've got 2 presentations to give to you guys, one after the other. For this first one, this is a focused presentation on the development itself. I first want to introduce to you the project team that I've got for here. So we have Janetta Jovinko here sitting next to me. She's with Richard Watson and Gershon. She's legal counsel for the city on this project, focused on the CEQA document. And then I also have Travis Crawford in the front here. He is the CEQA consultant who generated the environmental impact report for this project. And he's going to give you a brief presentation in the middle of mine here explaining the CEQA process for this. So for this first presentation, this is going to be focused on the project itself and the details of the project. I would encourage the council to, if you'd like to interrupt me, please do, especially if you feel like there's something I'm saying that I am not explaining very well. I can only say to you guys that this is 3 years of work combined into about an hour. So I'm sure there are going to be ways that I list acronyms that I know, but maybe everybody else doesn't. So feel free to interrupt me. And with that, why don't we go ahead and jump into the presentation on the project. All right. So the project location for the Sage Ranch development is located here in the heart of town, bounded between Valley Boulevard and Pinion Street, to the north and the south, and to the west is the Clearview development, and then to the east is Tehachapi Unified School District property, including the high school. So the red boundary, it's a 138-acre project. Okay, the final master development plan, this is all those years of work put together as we've crunched through the work. The land use plan represents 995 single and multi-family dwelling units located on 795 lots. The applicant is wishing to produce 8 product types, which I will go into greater detail on. And the approvals tonight are for the plan development, final master plan, the CEQA document, the final environmental impact report, and the tentative map, and I'll talk about those when we reach the conclusion of the presentation. To the right is the map of the development of that land use area. And so the different colors, I know you can't tell from here, but they represent the different product types and the way they're spatially distributed on the site. You'll also see the green areas are public spaces, park spaces that are proposed as a component of this project. So just a brief reminder to you all, this is only the second time we've gone through the plan development process since we adopted a new zoning code in 2014. It is a 3-step approval process. We're on step 2 tonight. Step 1 is a preliminary development plan. The Planning Commission approved that in February of 2019, where they initially laid out the size and scope of this project, and received an approval from the Planning Commission to move down the road towards that project. That also was the launching point for the environmental document to analyze the project. The second is the major step and the primary approval step of the project. That's the final master development plan. So briefly, the concept behind a plan development is that in exchange for some flexibility from the details of the zoning code, the developer can master plan something for us and lay out a lot more detail than you would normally see at this stage of a project. That's what they have to give to us. And in exchange, they effectively, just so you guys know, plan development is effectively a zone change. We are creating this zone for this land called Plan Development 2019-01. And then the third step repeats itself as the project moves into construction. You will not see the precise development plans unless somebody appeals the Planning Commission's decision. Each phase of the project, they're required to deliver a precise development plan to the Planning Commission, who will be verifying that they are following the master plan. Okay? Background on the project, this is a picture of the preliminary development plan. Again, the application came in October of 2018. Planning Commission held a hearing for the preliminary development plan in February of 19. The CEQA document was launched in January of 2020 when it was distributed. And the technical studies were completed, and then the CEQA ISEIR went for public circulation in March, April of 2020. Okay, there were some changes to the preliminary plan. The Planning Commission asked for a greater portion of standalone single-family houses, so there was a small change in the project at that time that is reflected in today's product. So I'm going to jump right into what the product is. So these are the 8 product types in descending size. So the first is the SFD5 program. These are 50 by 100 foot minimum lot sizes. These are single-family detached homes. These are some renderings of the houses that are proposed. I'm going to go kind of quick through these. And those are plot plans showing each of these houses has the garages pushed back from the road. In 2 of the versions, the garages are well back from the road. And there's 120 of these proposed in this development. The size of the units ranges from 2,000 to 2,500. 20.9 acres of the site is consumed with this product type, and that's a dwelling unit ratio of 5.5 dwelling units per acre. I'm not going to read each of those, but that's that data for each one of these. Okay, this is the SFD7, slightly smaller lot, slightly smaller home arrangement. All of these are alley loaded, so all of these homes will have their garages loaded to an alleyway. So they're going to present very well on the front side. They should be really attractive. And there's the statistics on the number of them, the size, and the amount of acreage that's being consumed for this product type. So 138 of these units. The patio homes are also a detached single-family home product. These lots are yet again a measure smaller. And these also show these are all loaded to an alley, meaning the garage faces an alley and the house faces a primary street. That's the number of dwelling units, the size of the homes. These are typically going to be 2-story houses, not typically, always. Going to be 2-story houses, and that shows the relative density of them. Okay, these are the paired homes. So these are a detached multifamily dwelling. So what that means is it's a single lot or a series of lots connected to each other that have like a shared driveway to a quad or 6-plex of detached homes. Does that make sense? And so you can see the architecture proposed here. That's an example of a quad of those types, 114 of these units. Still a decent sized home. And the beauty of these is they share the driveway with each other, so you're going to get to know your neighbors well, but the landscaping is maintained by the HOA for those sites, and so this is a perfect place for a senior or a traveling or a two working family who wants to live in a nice place, have their own single family home, but doesn't want all the burden of a big yard. The next product begins the attached products. So there's Cottage Homes A. These are condominiums essentially. So these show you guys the layout of those. So these are all common driveways to garage spaces and an integrated garage. They do have common walls. They come in 4-plexes, 6-plexes, or there are a handful of the 8-plexes. There's 72 of those units, and then the size ranges are listed there as well. So, but these are single-family homes for sale, so they're condominiums. Here's the cottage home B. You'll notice the big difference here is this is an all single-story product. So this is what is being characterized as an age-targeted product, meaning there won't be a restriction against it being for seniors, but because it's all single floor, it will be targeted towards seniors who won't want a 2-story home. So then here's what they look like in layout. And the approximate size, 950 to 1,150 unit or square feet, and 66 of these units are proposed. Okay. Then townhomes are also proposed for this project. So here's a rendering of the townhome building, or one of them, that they're proposing. This is the layout for that. These are larger units for these townhomes. These are all going to be presented as a frontal unit to a main street. So that's the nice thing about these features. They're going to have like a alley drive approach to all the garages that are collectively shared that driveway between each of the units. But the homes themselves have walkways and front porch areas and stuff that front to the street, so that if you have a visitor, they're going to park on the street, just walk to your front door. And lastly, there are apartments also proposed for this project. This is a rendering of the 2-story apartments that are proposed. Nothing is above 2 stories proposed in this development. And here's the layout of those and the size implication. These are all clustered in a single spot on the development in the southeast corner of the development. This is one of the ways in which the applicant worked with the city when they began to talk to us about, we recommended this location for these because it's next to the high school. The baseball field's at the high school, but otherwise wasn't next to any existing homes. And that way, in case anyone would be concerned about this level of density adjacent to their home, that this is, a quarter mile away from anybody else's single-family house. So, and the applicant did work with us on layout. I didn't mention it earlier, with putting the largest homes they're proposing here, which are pretty sizable homes, 2,000 to 2,600 square foot homes, adjacent to both the western edge of the project and the southern edge of the project, and those are the two that abut the existing neighborhoods in that area. So again, trying to match the quality of those neighborhoods to maintain the value for the neighboring properties. So now let's briefly run through amenities. So one of the primary...
Jacob,
yes, please.
can we ask questions during?
If you'd like, yes.
Okay. Would you prefer we hold them to the end?
It's either or. Now's a great time if you'd like to talk about the product sizes.
Just a question on, will there be, the tenant or the homeowner will park in the rear of most of these places? Is there on-street parking for visitor?
Yes.
At the curb?
Yes, there's quite a bit of on-street parking development, spread throughout the development. All right, thank you, sir. Okay. So, one of the responses with a PD plan of this density is that there has to be very meaningful public amenities. In fact, that's a requirement under the code, is that 80% of the homes be within a quarter mile walking distance of a major amenity. So when you do a project of this nature, they can achieve that by developing in an area like immediately adjacent to downtown. That would have checked that box. But since they're not in that case, they had to develop amenities to serve their customers. And that's part of the exchange that occurs with the approval of this process. So that's why it's so important for us to talk about the amenities, which are significant. So the Central Park and Clubhouse is a 3-acre park boasting each of the items that are listed here. So if you're an HOA, there will be a homeowners association. You have access to the pool and the private clubhouse and each of the items that are listed here. So I'm going to run through them. That's a rendering of the clubhouse that's being proposed for the development. It's got a neat farmhouse look to it that we think fits well here in the community. Although that Range Rover, I'm not so sure about. But anyway. We also, there is also, I'm trying to remember the acreage on this. I think it's 2 to 3 acres. Forgive me for not knowing. A soccer park. This is in the northwest corner. So include 2 full-size soccer fields. This will also double as a detention basin, but not a deep one. And then there's off-street parking, as you can see, for use of this park space. Shade structures and restrooms, tables, and some play equipment in that area as well. There is a community garden space with raised garden plots that will be managed by the HOA for the benefit of the residents who want to have their own private garden. They'll be able to utilize this space. There is a community garden space. This one is designed, I believe this is 6 or 7 tenths of an acre. So this is a pretty meaningful plot of land, but Entry gate, monuments, tables, a rose garden trellis. This is an effective wedding venue if somebody wanted to rent this space for that purpose. Again, managed by the HOA. And then the apartment complex has its own recreation area with the listed items here. Okay. So a pool, and play structure, play surface, and a recreational building as well.
So, Jay, is that strictly for the apartment people?
Yes.
So the others are not invited to go into that?
Well, that remains to be undetermined whether or not if you're a member of the HOA, you get access to either facility. I know the apartment will have access to the apartment complex. Whether they limit to the apartment customers, I don't know. We haven't really addressed that. The other structures will be controlled, no doubt, by the HOA members. But so if you wanted access to the pool, similar to Bear Valley, you're going to have to know somebody who's going to get you into the pool kind of thing. So, but the soccer park, for instance, is not going to be gated, and so anyone from the community may utilize that space. Okay, it's an important part of any approval of a project of this size is that we address the issue of phasing for that project. A healthy phasing plan, make sure that a good balance of amenities are being constructed with each phase of the housing, and that the amenities are coming first, so that housing is not going in and then the economy turns and you've got houses that are paying into an HOA with no amenities. Those things get really tricky. So this phasing plan was developed. What's important to note is one half of the Central Park and the clubhouse itself and the whole clubhouse will be constructed in phase 1. So 1.5 acre park in phase 1 for the piece. Central Park will be completed in phase 2B, which is like technically phase 3. So that's the north half of the development. Phase 1 is the yellow. Phases 2 and 2B are the 2 blue ones, to give you a sense. So the rest of Central Park and the community garden will go in 2B. And then the remaining amenities will all be completed by the end of phase 3. So about halfway through is when all the amenities are completed, and we've made sure that a significant amount of the amenities are going in on day 1. Developed, it's in your staff report, a maintenance responsibility matrix. So this is an important document because it states who's going to be maintaining all the various things that have to be maintained as part of the project. So the HOA is naturally taking a large portion of this. The HOA will be maintaining all landscaped areas, public and private, in the development. So all the parks, all the street trees, even the medians on Valley and Pinion will be maintained by the HOA. So will the alleyways. So realizing how difficult it is to fund alley maintenance, the HOA will be maintaining the alleys. The city will be maintaining the primary streets and the street lights. And then our standard suite of maintenance, water, sewer, trash functions, and then road maintenance are our standards. However, and this is very important to note, in our opinion, the applicant has agreed to enter into a community facilities district, which is, as you'll recall from the Walmart project, is an additional tax on the properties there in perpetuity to help fund the increased cost of policing and road maintenance for this project. So I very happily report to you guys that we had a very agreeable applicant to paying their fair share, paying their way on a project of this nature. So pleased to report that that is integrated as a condition of approval and a component of this maintenance matrix.
Jay, are they going to have landscaping and lighting districts?
No, the CFD, well, again, the landscaping will be handled by the HOA, so there's no need for a district because the city won't be maintaining it. The lighting is the one piece that we might normally put in an L&D, but in this case, because of the CFD, we should be able to easily accommodate that expense and still have additional tax dollars coming to us for police and roads. So briefly talk about architecture. There are 3 primary architectural expressions that are going to be included in this development. The first is colonial revival. Those are some of the characteristics of colonial revival that are rectangular in massing, steep roofs, side gables, columns, pilasters, covered porch, brick, wood, clapboard siding type accent pieces. This is a rendering of what that type of architecture looks like. The details of that architecture will be dealt with in the precise development plan phase.
So materials for the siding would be in the precise?
Yes, but these are supposed to be inspirational in the sense that they define the boundaries. So if they bring to us a French colonial like that would be a no, because it doesn't follow the approved final master development plan.
Well, for example, siding, at that point, the precise development plan, it'll denote whether it's going to be cement board siding versus wood, which
Yes, sir.
doesn't hold up in the weather as well, things like that.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
The second style being proposed is farmhouse. Metal tile shaped roofs, oversized grouped windows, simple post and beam front porches. The third style is traditional, simple, rectangular, large front porches, brick, wood shingle, horizontal, vertical siding, plaster or stone are the types of things you'll see on the traditional home. Entry monumentation and enhanced paving is also a component of the final master development plan. These are rendered pictures of what the monumentation will look like at the main entrances to the development and at key points, including there are a couple of internal roundabouts to the development, so the lower right there renders what that monumentation might look like in that area. Briefly, the landscaping, there's an extensive list of planting for a project of this size. There are conceptual landscaping plans included in the packet. Instead of walking you through those in detail, this is just a rendering of a lot of the plants selected, but there's like 6 pages of plants that are selected for this development. And so there's going to be a large variety. They will be WELO compliant, and they will be drought tolerant in accordance with state law. And these are just pictures of the types of things that you'll see. There's more detailed renderings of the entire site included in your staff report.
And they do well in our winters?
Yes, sir. That'll be our job. Tentative track map is attachment G. This is just the first page of the 6-page track map. A lot of times we discuss these in greater detail, but by the nature of having the final master development plan, the details of the tentative map just become what engineers do. It doesn't really express anything more, but this is a component of tonight's approval. Briefly walk through the roadway cross sections. Valley Boulevard will be enhanced significantly to include a landscape median and landscape project edges along the edge. The developer will be responsible for constructing a half of this road plus an additional 10 or 20 feet, what is necessary to maintain the same level of traffic capacity at a minimum that's there now while enhancing the side that is adjacent to their project. Opinion is similar. They will be installing a median along the frontage of the project and enhancing the landscaping, widening the road for additional vehicle capacity in this area. Central Avenue, this is the main north-south running road within the development. This shows you the concept is tree-lined streets, generous sidewalks and a median space for it to be comfortable for both vehicles and pedestrians. It's a neighborhood to be in this and to be very walkable. These are local road sections. You'll notice in all of these, they're tree-lined streets maintained by the HOA is a component of this project. And then we have an alley detail here, and then bulb outs will be utilized throughout the development to create nice sheltered parking areas, on-street parking areas, and then confine the vehicle lanes to the center of the road, keeps vehicle speeds down, keeps it a very neighborhood-oriented speed for both cars and pedestrians. Yes, sir.
And the sidewalks have a parkway between the sidewalk and the curb?
Yep, the whole development. Okay, so we prepared an environmental impact report for this project. The public review period occurred between March 4th and April 3rd. Those are the areas of study that were done for this. Our conclusion is that the project with mitigation will not have a significant adverse effect on the environment. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn the presentation over to Travis Crawford with Crawford Bowen Planning, who provided our environmental impact report. Corey, would you swap over to his presentation?
Good evening.
Good evening. Again, my name is Travis Crawford. Appreciate the opportunity to work with the city on this project. Since Jay went into depth about the project description, I'm just going to kind of go over briefly with it, but I wanted to show you the description that was included in the EIR, which essentially reflects what Jay said. Okay, so the project located on 138 acres within the city limits, bound by Valley Boulevard on the north, residential development to the west, Canyon Street to the south, and the high school to the east. Currently, the site sits vacant and is Zone T4, which is the general urban zoning designation. And the site is designated by the city's general plan as 4B Southern Neighborhoods. So the project is allowed use within these designations. There are a couple of site photos on the screen showing the general nature of the site. The map on the screen again shows the location relative to the rest of the city. The project applicant is proposing to divide the 138 acres of T4 zone land into a residential community with a mix of multifamily and detached units. About 52% are detached and 48% are attached units. Jay went into detail about these, so I won't repeat the number of units for each one. The project would be built over a 7-year period with about 143 units per year. And as Jay mentioned, the project includes park land, about 14 acres, and infrastructure improvement. This is the layout of the project. The different types of housing are grouped by color. As you can see, there's the green for the parks, the lighter tan for, or you can see the different designations depicting the different kind of housing units. Okay, so that's the project. So now we go into the CEQA process. So the first step was the preparation of an initial study and notice of preparation. And what that is, it's just basically announcing that we're putting together an EIR for the project. And that document also scopes out some of the more minor topics that don't necessarily need the full EIR analysis. So that document was circulated for public review for 30 days in July of 2019. Following that, we commenced with preparation of the EIR. To support the EIR, we had a series of technical studies prepared, and I'll just go through those quickly. An air quality greenhouse gas analysis was prepared pursuant to Eastern Kern Air Pollution Control District's guidelines and regulations. We took a look at air emissions associated with construction and operation of the project, and the study determined that the project would not exceed any established air district thresholds, but certain mitigation measures are being implemented. And I'm going to discuss all mitigation in a minute. We also did a biological evaluation. A survey was conducted and a report was prepared. No endangered plants or animal species were observed on the site except a tricolored blackbird that was seen in the area. So the project will require a pre-construction survey just to make sure nothing has landed on the site or anything like that. That's a standard fish and wildlife measure. We put together a SB 610 water supply assessment, which is something that's required for any residential project with more than 500 units. We took a look at the water demands versus the existing water or available water supplies. The water supply assessment contained information from the 2015 Regional Urban Water Management Plan, from annual reports from the Tehachapi Basin Water Master, and some more recent technical information was used in the analysis. The determination was that there is adequate water to serve the project after mitigation. And again, I'll discuss mitigation in a minute. There was also a drainage and detention analysis prepared, determine the appropriate size and location of the drainage and storage plant. I think it includes an 11 acre-foot capacity detention basin on site. And then finally, a traffic impact study was prepared that took a look at all of the major intersections and roadways in the project area. Included several scenarios, including the phased build-out approach and traffic conditions out to year 2040, which is a requirement of Caltrans. So based on that analysis, the project will require several improvements. So the topics on the screen here are the 20 topics that are required to be analyzed under CEQA. Of these 20 topics, there were 6 that were determined to require mitigation in order to find the finding of less than significant impact. So quickly those, under air quality, the mitigation, it requires compliance with standard dust and emission controls. For biology, I mentioned the pre-construction survey. Public services requires payment of impact fees for police, fire, and schools. hydrology and water quality. For water quality, the project will be required to prepare a stormwater pollution prevention plan and to implement water quality protection measures. For water supply, one of the measures is the requirement of a separate meter for public and outdoor landscaping, which could be restricted during severe droughts. Also for water supply, according to the water supply analysis, the project will require approximately 350 acre feet at full build out. The analysis shows that the project would exceed the city's projected water supply by about 93 acre feet a year when the project is fully built out. So to make up the difference, the project's being required to secure and purchase 93 acre feet of water per year. So with this additional water, the city has adequate capacity, and the requirement to bring the 93 acre feet is a condition of project approval. And Jay will be going into this in more detail in a minute, so I will leave that for him. And then finally, under utilities, that chapter contains some of the similar analysis as the hydrology section, so the mitigation measures from hydrology are repeated there. And then traffic. Mitigation for traffic involves payment to the Tehachapi Region Transportation Impact Fee, as well as payment of fair share and constructing improvements identified in the EIR. So the mitigation measures are summarized on the screen. They include improvements to many intersections along Tehachapi Boulevard, Valley Boulevard, Snyder, Curry, and others in the project area. The EIR also analyzed cumulative impacts to the project. The cumulative analysis basically analyzed the project along with other projects that or other future potential developments in the city. The analysis was based in part on the city's 2030 general plan. However, some topics like traffic had a longer cumulative analysis out to year 2040. The EIR determined that with implementation of mitigation measures that the project would have a less than cumulatively considerable impact. CEQA also requires an analysis of alternatives. The EIR analyzed 3 alternatives: the no project, which means the site remains vacant, unused, an alternate site, and then a reduced project alternative. So for the reduced project alternative, we took a look at a 50% reduction, which is kind of a reasonable amount to illustrate what impact such an alternative would have as compared to the project. So although the no project and the reduced project were determined that they would reduce the impacts of the project compared to the proposed project, they do not fully meet the objectives of the project. Therefore, the proposed project that you are seeing here tonight was selected as the preferred alternative. So following circulation of the draft EIR, the city received 4 comment letters. Briefly, one letter from Caltrans who concurred with the traffic analysis, which is always nice. We got a letter from Department of Toxic Substances Control, which provided guidelines and regulations pertaining to hazardous materials. Should be noted there are no hazardous materials on the site. It was just kind of a form letter that they sent out. A third letter was received from a nearby landowner about development of adjacent land and some potential agricultural conflicts. As I mentioned, this site is designated for residential development by the city. And there is a Right to Farm Act that applies to the project and surrounding areas. So the city reached out to the person who provided the comment, and they discussed this with them. And then the fourth letter was from the Tehachapi County Water District, and they provided comments and questions on the project water supply analysis. So following that letter, the city prepared an updated water supply assessment and some sections of the EIR that pertain to water supply. Those were included in the final EIR, and as well as an extensive response to the district on their comment letter, which I think Jay will be going into a little bit more detail. So all of the comments and responses are included in your final EIR, and the final EIR also includes some minor changes that were made to the draft EIR and the water supply assessment. Okay, so just to sum it up, the EIR was circulated in March 2020 for 45 days. Pursuant to CEQA, sent to the state clearinghouse, local agencies, published in the newspaper. And following the public review and responses to comments, the final EIR was prepared, which brings us here. So our next steps are to conduct a public hearing, and then we can open it up for any further questions that you have, and then the council can take action. I'm available for answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so let me pick it up from there. Thank you, Travis. All right. Corey. So moving from there towards the what are we going to ask you to do issue. So the first thing that we did was evaluate the consistency of this project with the general plan. And as Travis noted, this is in the general plan designation for southern neighborhoods. The intent of that general plan designation is, as noted there, to provide single-family detached homes to serve as the transition from rural neighborhoods and agricultural to central neighborhoods, short blocks to promote connectivity. So we think this provides that, frankly, in spades. A more extensive consistency analysis with the general plan is provided as attachment H to the staff report. There are numerous findings required from the council in order to adopt this. We have provided those on pages 33 and 34, and I think a little bit on to 35 of the staff report, item by item. The conclusion is that all required criteria and specific zoning code recommendations can be met in staff's opinion, and the recommended determinations can be found again in the staff report under section X or 10. So my recommendation tonight, and my presentation isn't over yet, but my recommendation tonight is the following. First, that you adopt a resolution of the Tehachapi City Council certifying the final environmental impact report, adopting findings pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, and adopting a mitigation monitoring and reporting program for the Sage Ranch Development Project, PD number 2019-01, amendment number 5, final master development plan. I also ask that you approve the first reading and introduction of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Tehachapi approving the plan development number 2019-01, Sage Ranch, subject to the conditions of approval. And I also ask that you adopt the resolution of the Tehachapi City Council approving tentative tract number 7366. Okay, so while you go ahead and pull up the other presentation, Corey, let me just briefly let you guys know what the Planning Commission did with this. So we were at Planning Commission on July 12th and gave this presentation to them. They adopted a resolution, which is included in your staff report, supporting this project on a 4-1 vote. Some issues related, all items that we've talked about were the issues raised. I think we had 7 comments from the public, several of which were in support of the project, several of which were questioning issues related to the project. I don't know that we had a single person say not to do this project. We might have had one. I don't think so. More it was questions like, hey, how are you handling traffic? Where are we getting the water from? What are the construction hours of this project? I live nearby. So we tried to answer those questions the greatest degree possible. So that's the report from the Planning Commission on this item. So what also though came up was probably the principal item that's left on this project, which is the issue of water. So I prepared a second presentation related specifically to the water supply assessment and the issue of water related to this project. So unlike the first presentation, I may respectfully request that you guys don't interrupt me on this presentation. My reason being that there's a lot of ground to cover here that works sequentially. And so the odds are I'll get to the answer to your question if you let me finish it out. So let's do that, and then at that point, I'll introduce to you the applicant and their team, and then we can proceed from there with the public notice. So, okay.
We have questions, just take a note to ask.
Yes, sir. And so, yeah, to facilitate that, I included a copy of these slides with some space on the paper below them, assuming that you may have some questions. So feel free to take notes as I'm walking through, and I'll try to capture those in the council comment period. All right. So water supply is an issue. Briefly as background, this is a little redundant. CEQA requires a water supply assessment for a project of this nature, and we call it a WSA, so you're going to hear that term a lot. A water supply assessment is a separate component of the government code that applies to large projects. In this case, projects over 500 homes are required by law to provide a WSA. The WSA is a higher level evaluation of the adequacy of water as it relates to the project. So we've been working on this for a long time. We developed the first draft that went public. After receiving comments from the water district, we made major revisions to the WSA, which are also included in your packet. The developer in those revisions has to now bring a sizable amount of water to the project, 93 acre-feet of pumpable water rights, which represents about $1 million worth of water. I'll talk a little bit more about that. The WSA conservatively, and I use that word meaningfully, we estimated that it may require up to 350 acre-feet. It is my job to estimate conservatively in these moments and to make sure that the number is the high-end number. I do think that it's possible that the number is lower, but the number in the analysis is 350 acre-feet. That's what's needed for this project. Sage Ranch, according to the current analysis, must bring 93 acre-feet of pumpable water rights to the city. The applicant, since receiving a further opposition letter from the district, the applicant has agreed to bring 175 acre-feet of water to this project, almost doubling the required amount. And now they're bringing 50% of the water associated with this project. This is approximately $2 million worth of water rights, which in my opinion is a very good show of commitment from the developer as it relates to this project. The balance of the water, according to the analysis and to us, is to come from our water contract with the Tehachapi Cummings County Water District, led by Mr. Neisler, who I believe is here tonight with some of his board members, and he's been he provided further comments following the Planning Commission hearing, and I'll briefly talk about those. Those are included in your packet. So I think it's important for us to talk about the history of communications on this. The draft WSA, again, was circulated back in March and April of 2020. Mr. Neisler, on behalf of the district, commented at that time. And what that spurred, the city recognized that that issue spurred a large conversation about water. And so staff began meeting with the district in the following months to discuss water in general for the community. Where the city, if the city is going to continue to grow at a reasonable pace, where is the water going to come from for that issue? And us looking specifically to the district to be our partner in providing that water. That culminated with a meeting on November 9th, 2020. That meeting was attended by myself, Don Marsh, the Public Works Director, Mr. Neisler is the General Manager, and the Operations Manager, John Curry, from the district. The four of us were in a room, and frankly, the conversation was the city saying, look, we're going to expect you to begin delivering water to us as the years go on for the basis of the city. The district's initial answer was, we don't have any water for you. And so our question back in return was, are you planning to tell Stallion Springs, Bear Valley, Golden Hills, Bright Valley, all of those players that you have no water for them either, because they're busy building homes and developing as well? To which the answer from the district was, well, they're different. They are already entitled to have that water, which we don't agree with. We have lots of entitled lots here in the city. And the city, we expressed in that meeting our frustration and our belief that since we even have contracts for the purchase of water from the district, that was an unreasonable position for the district to take. And upon being pressed, Mr. Neisler informed us, well, as is part of his rules and regulations, he is prepared to meet the city's reasonable needs for growth. And he expressed to us his concern that the Sage Ranch project was a more intense project and no longer represents reasonable growth, but is more than reasonable growth. And so we said, we understand that concern, and we said, so what is reasonable growth? And the answer that came back from Mr. Neisler was 2%. That's the way the city's been growing for years, and we can support the city growing at 2% and be a partner of yours in supplying the water for that. We said, we get you. We 100% agree, we can do that, and we provide an analysis showing what that growth rate looks like. And that analysis was completed. A detailed growth projection actually showed that the city's growth over the last 18 years has been 2.3%. We produced that analysis and provided it to the district showing what that growth projection looks like in terms of water needed. We provided that on January 27, 2021. We did not hear a single word back from the district at all since that time. We assumed that that analysis echoed the conversations that we had and was going to be an acceptable number. And then that growth projection, therefore, became the basis of the revised water supply assessment. And that's where the 93 acre-feet comes into play. So if we're growing at a reasonable 2% pace, and Sage Ranch represents growth at a faster pace than that, then what is the delta between those two that must be made up by the applicant in order to mitigate themselves back down to this reasonable growth rate? That number is 93 acre-feet of pumpable water rights. Okay? We then circulated that revised WSA on July 7th with that analysis, and Mr. Neisler attended the Planning Commission hearing on July 12th and requested a delay from the Planning Commission to work with staff and address those issues. For the record, we never received a single phone call from Mr. Neisler since that time. We did receive on July 28th a 56-page letter from a legal group hired by the district, Pioneer Law Group, objecting to the project on numerous legal grounds. That letter is included in your packet. So this presentation, just briefly to let you know, the additional materials that were completed today and delivered to you are there at the dais for you. They include 3 additional items. They include the staff level response or a supplemental memorandum. This is a point-by-point refutation of the Pioneer letter that was received. We also have provided to you a memorandum from Joe Hughes of Kleinding and Talley Goldner. We asked him to do a detailed review of the city's term M&I agreement and the district's water priority agreement or ordinance, which I'll be talking about here in a minute. And this is his analysis of the validity of those documents and the usefulness in addressing the CEQA issues tonight for Sage Ranch. And then you also, today we received a letter from Hagen Dennison, legal counsel for the applicant. And that 2-page letter is also included there at the dais for your use. There is also a copy in the back. So let's talk briefly about the city term M&I agreement. So the term M&I stands for municipal and industrial, and that is contrasting with agricultural. Those are the only 2 types of water customers as defined in the district's rules and regulations. In their guiding laws, those are the 2 types of customers. The city is a term M&I customer. And the district approached the city back in 2014 and 15 asking for the city to enter into a term M&I agreement. And the purpose of that agreement is to govern how the city purchases water from the district for our needs. That's the purpose of the agreement. The opening recital in that agreement states that the agreement exists to meet the city's, quote, present and future water needs. This agreement expressly exists for the purpose of our future needs. And in that agreement, as in any agreement, we talk about what we're doing and what they're doing in the agreement. What we are doing is we are limited on our ability to find water from anyone other than the district. The agreement says that we may only purchase the water we need above our groundwater allocation from the district. It also requires that the city pay to build up a banked water reserve account. That terminology you'll see there. The concept for a banked water reserve account is it's the rainy day fund, or the drought day fund is a better way of putting it. It's the water we have in the ground in years of drought in which the district may not have water to sell us, that we can call upon that bank to meet our needs during that time period. So we spent $500,000 of taxpayer money since we signed this agreement, building up the banked water reserve account in accordance with what that agreement requires from us. The district controls the use of the banked water reserve account. So the $500,000 of taxpayer money is controlled by the district. They decide when the bank is utilized to meet our needs. We can't just call them up and go, you know, we're gonna spend 200 acre-feet this year of that banked water reserve account. They decide. In exchange, the district agrees to provide the city with up to 1,153 acre-feet per year of water, subject to availability. Meaning, of course, in years of drought, when they don't actually have it, they don't have to sell it to us. But in years of non-drought, they are required to sell us up to that amount. That's the agreement that we signed. The agreement is a 10-year evergreen contract, meaning evergreen means it renews every single year in perpetuity unless somebody terminates the agreement. Okay? Also important to discuss the water priority ordinance. The district, in years of shortage, like this year, years of drought, the district adopts an ordinance to determine who's going to get the limited amount of water, who's going to get water and who's not. That seems pretty reasonable to me, pretty intelligent for the district to decide in years of drought who's going to get it and who's not. That ordinance states, and the district has repeated that statement actually in their own documentation to us in the Pioneer letter, that existing term M&I customers are at the top of that priority list. We are the highest priority for limited water supply. All the homes in the Sage Ranch project will connect to the city's water system. The city wishes to have the option to purchase water from TCCWD to serve our customers. So it's important to note that the Sage Ranch those are end users. They are not customers of the district. They are city's customers. The city is the customer of the district. However, TCCWD is choosing to call Sage Ranch a new customer. And they're doing that so that they can attempt to not place this use of water at the top of the priority list. But a plain reading of the language is clear. The city is the existing term M&I customer, and by their own admission has top priority for the water. Sage Ranch, as I've noted there, is not a TCCWD customer. The city is the customer, and so the district's own laws state that the water the city wishes to purchase has top priority even in years of drought. So let's talk briefly about water availability. The memo from the district has quite a bit of discussion about how much water the district can expect to receive from the State Water Project, or the California Aqueduct. That's what SWP is, the California Aqueduct, in any given year. Starting at the top, the district has 2 contracts with the Kern County Water Agency for water off of the California Aqueduct. And so KCWA is one of the big water players here in the state. And those 2 contracts at 100% allocation, which we admit the district doesn't get very often, entitles them to up to 19,300 acre-feet per year of water off the aqueduct. I prefer to put that in terms that I think the average person can understand. At that rate, that is equivalent to the water necessary to feed 50,000 single-family homes with water. 19,300 acre-feet. It's a lot of water. Now, we agree, environmental regulation and district facility restrictions reduce this to somewhere between 40 and 60% in a given year. That's the average the district, long-term average the district can assume they will get, lands somewhere between 40 and 60%. Worst case scenario though, however, the district in their documentation predict a worst case scenario of as low as 33% allocation on average. That reduces that value of 19,300 acre-feet to 6,400 acre-feet of water. That is the district's own admitted worst-case scenario for the average amount of water they're going to receive year after year after year after year after year. That is still equivalent to 19,000 homes worth of water. That is more than double the current population of the entire Tehachapi zip code. So even in worst case, long-term worst case scenario, the district still is getting quite a bit of water. Sage Ranch requires now 175 acre-feet of water from the district. That is 2.7% of their worst case estimate. And yet the district is, quote, predicting dire consequences as a result of this project. We obviously don't agree. So here's our response. We actually believe that the district is perfectly aware of these numbers, of the actual numbers, that Sage Ranch as a project does not represent a meaningful quantity of water. The Sage Ranch project is not the concern. Instead, the district does not want to allow a shift to M&I customers to occur. So for all the years since the project that the pump stations were built in the 1970s to deliver water from the Kern County Water Agency up to here till now, the vast majority of the water that's pumped up goes to agricultural concerns in the Tehachapi area. This is maybe the first moment 50 years later in which one of the municipal agencies have turned to the district and said, okay, we're going to want this water every year from now until the end of time for the basis of the city. And It is our opinion that the district does not want to allow this shift to occur. And that is why they've chosen the Sage Ranch project as a lightning rod to make their objections known, even though this individual project does not represent a meaningful amount of water. That's a problem, because tonight the only item being considered for approval is Sage Ranch. It is inappropriate for the district to conflate the two issues and to attempt to disrupt the Sage Ranch project on the basis that they are concerned that a long-term shift to M&I customers means a corresponding shift away from agricultural customers. We believe the district wishes to protect their corporate farming interests and the partnerships they've built, particularly in Cummings Valley, with large corporate farming outfits. The district does not want to have their hands tied to M&I. They don't want to be, because once they make the commitment here, year after year, everyone's going to turn on their taps in those homes, and the city's going to need to purchase that water and have that water delivered. And in years of drought, that's what the banked water reserve account is for, so that in years of plenty, the bank gets refilled and when we meet our water demands. TCCWD's two contracts for water are divided as shown on the drawing there. When they have first contracted with the agency, they contracted for 15,000 acre-feet of M&I water and 5,000 acre-feet for agriculture. Currently, less than 500 acre-feet in any given year go to M&I customers. The vast majority of this water, since the day these pump stations were built, have gone to agricultural customers. I think it's important for us to discuss, too, the situation associated with where the district receives its funds. The district has an annual budget of approximately $11 million. Approximately $7 million of that is money they derive from property taxes from the people in the 93561 zip code and surrounding areas. 98% of those property taxes come from non-agricultural properties. However, over 90% of the water the district pumps up from the Central Valley serves agricultural interests. It costs the district somewhere around $1,000 to $1,300 to pump 1 acre-foot of water up from the Central Valley to serve a customer here in this area, and yet they charge less than $500 an acre-foot when they sell that acre-foot to somebody. The difference between those two is tax subsidies. City staff doesn't really have a problem. Agriculture is an important part of who we are as a community and what we do and part of our history, but I do have a problem with us paying 50 years of taxes and the city standing up and saying we'd like 2% of your water to meet our needs and to receive a no from the district, even though year after year after year, the taxpayers of this community and the other non-agricultural taxpayers have paid the bills and have helped directly subsidize the cost of farming in this community. So I'm not sure what Mr. Neisser is going to tell you here in the public comment period. We've provided detailed responses to this. I think fundamentally our feeling is that this doesn't have anything to do with the Sage Ranch project directly. Sage Ranch, as I would remind you, has agreed to bring half of the water, which is almost double the amount of water they're required to bring with the WSA. And I might note that the first WSA had Sage bringing no water. The second one, in response to the district's comments, required them to bring 93 acre feet. The applicant has steadily, step by step through this process, shown good faith by delivering additional water. We asked the district earlier last week if they were willing to accept the 50% offer of water from the applicant to settle this issue, and received a no in response from the district. The district's answer is they have no water for us. So it's a challenging issue for us. I'm happy to answer any of your questions. I think maybe at this point I should go ahead and introduce the applicant team to you. And so Paul Morris is here, Keller Williams, and is your CEO now of Sage Ranch, right? Yes. It's a fancy title. So I'll maybe let you, Paul, introduce the rest of your team, and that'll conclude my talking for now.
Thank you, Jake.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Paul, turn on your mic. Okay. Test. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members and city staff. My name is Paul Morris. I'm head of the Sage Ranch project and also CEO of Forward Living, which is a group of 12 Keller Williams offices that have, we have 3,500 realtors serving Central and Southern California. And locally, I've been one of the owners of the Tehachapi Keller Williams office for just about 10 years. I became involved with Sage Ranch more than 2 years ago to advise in marketing and eventual sales of the project should we get approval. And most recently took over the lead representative of the project. And Sage Ranch, if approved, will build a community-oriented project which is very environmentally conscious. A lot of this was said already, so I'll keep it very brief, but we're providing 8 product types in 6 phases over 7 years. The different product types are designed to serve different aspects of the community here, all the way from first-time home buyers, all the way to retirees and in between. There's significant housing shortage, as I can attest from being part of the real estate community. Also, I had the pleasure to travel to Washington, D.C. with retired General Smith, who had intended to be here tonight. We went there together because they have significant housing shortage at Plant 42, which he runs. He's in charge of the housing and many other things, and was formerly in charge of Edwards Air Force Base. Sage Ranch is a project which would address this community's needs, the housing shortage, and then also be able to provide some additional housing to the airmen and engineers that Dr. Smith would love to see. And in terms of the environmental aspect of it, again, a lot was said. We're addressing the environmental aspect in several different ways. One of them is to build the project near local schools, churches, and the hospital, as well as provide a lot of the amenities inside the project, as staff mentioned. And I'll just mention a little bit with regard to the water usage, because there's been so much discussion about that. Jay himself used the term conservative, and when I looked at the water, the WSA, the water supply assessment, I would have said very tough, and it would have been the words I used instead of conservative. But I do understand that city staff is here to protect the city and the city's interests, and our resources important as water. And rather than take note with any of city staff's comments and the way that they assess the water, their bottom line was that with 93 acre-feet, all of the needs would be met. I do think it's important to note that it's a 7-year project, and that the water that we're offering to provide, the 93 acres, would be provided up front, so that would also give the city time, as they mentioned in their reports, to do other water mitigation measures. And we really believe that it would come in well under the 350 acre-feet that's mentioned, not the least of which is more than 50% of the housing provided will be landscaped with desert scape instead of grass, which is normally very water intensive. And after we were met with some resistance, even providing 93 acres, again, we're looking to do this project in accordance with all of the regulations, and also do it in a way that provides as much value and as low impact as possible. And so we offered 175 acre-feet, which, again, as Jay mentioned, is a cost of approximately $2 million to the project just for water. Also, again, that will be delivered up front, so that takes us really through half of the 7-year process. And I I believe that those measures together with what we're delivering is a very reasonable collaborative approach with the city staff, and I would ask that the council consider this proposal favorably. Again, staff did a very thorough job, so I don't need to get into much of the detail, but it really does seem like Sage Ranch is the lightning rod, I believe staff used as a comment, and that's not what we're here to ask for tonight. We're looking for approval of this project, and we believe we've come to the table with actually almost double the water that was requested by the city as a measure of good faith to make sure that we're doing more than our part of it. So I really thank you very much for your attention to this matter. The city's been very responsive and really terrific to work with, while being quite conservative was the terminology. But very tough, but I think also fair, and we appreciate that. I'll introduce the folks that are here with me tonight, and we're also here for additional questions as we move forward if you guys have questions. Kristen Hagan is our lawyer, legal liaison, who helps us sort of win our way through some of these sort of process. And Todd Wood is from DeWalt Engineering. The team that we put together, I believe, is really a world-class team. So from the architectural designs, which make a big difference, landscape designs, again, we're doing things very, very nicely, and also with the reduction of resource use. So thank you very much for your consideration. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any more staff? That concludes my report. Happy to answer any questions.
All right. At this point, then, we should receive public comment. So, if you can grab where are the speaker cards?
The speaker cards are in the back. And
You can grab a speaker card just so we know who you are, if we need to get a hold of you for further follow-up. And come on up and give us your thoughts. And everyone can have 3 minutes. Should be able to put one across the net. Does anyone want to comment?
Our first card is from Mr. Snyder.
Oh, yes, sir. Good evening.
Thank you. I'm Tom Neisman. I'm the General Manager of the Tehachapi County Water District. Honorable Mayor and City Council members, I'm here to present the Water District's comments on the certification of the final EIR track map for the proposed Sage Ranch development. My comments fall into 4 general categories. First, TCCWD's regional water supply and management role. Second, the failure to communicate with TCCWD on behalf of the city, extremely well highlighted by Mr. Schlosser's presentation tonight, which we heard for the first time, as you did. Third, objections to the EIR, WSA, and project approval. And lastly, my closing comments. TCCWD is a regional agency serving customers throughout our 415 square mile service area. Our boundaries extend from Keene to San Canyon. Our customers range from small residential users to large agricultural and industrial users, and include 4 public water agencies: Bear Valley Springs CSD, City of Tehachapi, Golden Hills CSD, and Standing Springs CSD. Our tasks include ensuring adequate supplies of both groundwater and imported surface water. We manage groundwater as a court-appointed water master for the adjudicated Tehachapi, Bright, and Cummings basins. We manage surface water as a member unit of the Kern County Water Agency. Kern County Water Agency holds contracts for imported state water project water. We're responsible to manage these supplies to meet the needs of the approximately 40,000 people and varied commercial and industrial interests within our district. We've done that successfully for over 50 years. The Neither the city nor the consultants preparing this EIR in the USA consulted with the district prior to publishing the draft EIR and supporting documentation. When the district provided preliminary comments on the draft EIR and the WSA, we were assured that the district would be provided with a draft response and the opportunity to consult. We waited more than a year. We were not provided with a draft response in advance or an opportunity to consult. Our attorney, Andrea Matarazzo with the Pioneer Law Group, recently provided 27 pages of comments and objections to the revised EIR and WSA. I guess the rest of the pages Jay referred to were my comments. Again, we're not provided with any written response to her comments or consulting. We're in the midst of the worst drought in recorded history. There's no indication of how long it may last. Severe curtailments of current deliveries are being considered. My board and myself as the general manager are deeply disturbed by the haphazard manner in which the city, its consultants, and the applicant have ignored the single most important aspect of the project, the water supply and its potential impact on the environment and other water users in the basin. Given this lack of cooperation,
I'm going to let him continue.
thank you. I'll be brief. We find ourselves standing before the council and objecting to the project. The city and the project applicant have a duty to ensure an adequate water supply for the project. Paper water is not sufficient, as outlined in Ms. Matarazzo's comments. The EIR and WSA failed to demonstrate an adequate water supply. Attached to the staff report is attachment N is an August 11th letter from Jeff Kiaczewski purporting to contribute 262.5 acre feet, which equates to 175 acre feet of pumping allocation to the city as required to satisfy Sage Ranch's contribution to the project. The letter was not presented to or considered by the Planning Commission and raises several new issues. It is unclear whether the city has accepted the applicant's offer of contribution. If the offer is not an enforceable commitment, then it's a meaningless gesture. The offer is not discussed or considered in the staff report that was posted on the city's website. The offer of new water is not disclosed or considered in either the EIR or the WSA as posted on the website. It's unclear how the additional water impacts or satisfies the proposed mitigation measures. The offer doesn't satisfy the estimated project demand of 350 acre feet, and the source of the remaining supply and potential environmental impacts associated with the alternate supply remain unclear. The offer is not mentioned in the resolutions, ordinance, or conditions of approval for the project. Comment for the record concerning condition number 16 of approval, proposed condition number 16. TCCWD does not and will not provide reclaimed water or potable water for this project. Closing comments of Moonstone. Attachment N to the staff report is an email from Jeff Kiaczewski, which contains a number of unfounded inflammatory statements relating to the district, its directors, and staff. The accusations are false and they don't deserve further response. The Sage Ranch project will increase the water connections in the city by more than 30%. When coupled with previously approved developments and lots, the city will have entitled enough potential lots to increase the number of connections by approximately 50%. All of this increased demand is slated to occur without any increase in available water supply. Sage Ranch project will have significant adverse direct, indirect, and cumulative impacts on the environment and the availability of water supplies for other users, both within the city and within the much larger remainder of our district. This will exacerbate shortages and greatly impact the basin and all of our existing customers, including the existing residents of the city of Tehachapi. The city's superficial and inaccurate evaluation of the Sage Ranch project reflects inadequate analysis and mitigation of water supply under CEQA, the Water Code, and the Government Code. TCCWD will take all necessary action to ensure that the impact of the proposed developments on the environment and water supplies of all existing customers in the entire district are fully analyzed and considered prior to committing our customers' valuable and scarce water supplies to this or any other future development. We respectfully request that the council not certify the final EIR for the Sage Ranch project and and not approve the tentative tract map 7366. And instead, direct staff to revise and recirculate the EIR and WSA after addressing our comments and concerns. By providing copies of these comments to the city clerk to be included in the public record, I would strongly suggest that Mr. Schlosser's comments reiterate the necessity for discussion about these items. This is all brand new to us. Thank you for the extension of time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else like to ask questions or make comments? Mr. Nicer, I have a question for you, if you don't mind. Was it accurate in the presentation of what you received overall per year? Is it about 15,000 acre feet?
No, it's not represented correctly.
What is it?
Our 100% table allocation is 19,300 acre feet. We've averaged over the last 10 years about 43% of that amount. Last year we received 20%. This year we received 5%. We're planning for 0% next year. These are all published figures.
Sure. Now, is the city first in line for M&I water?
No.
Why not?
Because we have other M&I customers. Mr. Schlosser's assertion that existing M&I customers are first in line is also incorrect. Our first priority is fire flow. Our second priority is regular M&I customers. Our third priority is existing M&I customers. Note the term existing.
Well, those existing M&I customers would include agricultural?
No, that would be agricultural customers. So our existing M&I customers would be typically residential or commercial users. Again, we have 40,000 people in the district, 4 public agencies, many people outside of those public agencies who also rely on the district to maintain the basins to provide their water supply. Mountain Meadows, parts of Alpine Forest, etc., all rely on that imported water supply.
Now, has not the taxpayers, as was reported, we've been paying for 50 years for the importation of water, the pumping, all what it takes to provide the water to the district?
That's correct.
Okay. Why is it that all of a sudden we cannot tap into what we have paid for over all these years?
So you've been accruing the benefit for that for all 50 of these years. As Mr. Schlosser noted, the rates that we charge for water are tax subsidized. All of your residents on your property tax bill, my property tax bill, everyone's property tax bill has a line for tax becoming state water district. That's the tax subsidy. What that does is allow us to sell water to our term M&I customers for a much reduced rate, about a third of what it actually costs, and that benefit is passed on to your retail customers. In addition to which, they have access to that supply. About half of the water that we use in Tehachapi comes from 400 miles away. Only about half of it is generated locally. It's not just the city, that's the entire 415 square mile district.
Well, I take exception that there's no water left out there.
Never said that.
Okay.
That's
How
Mr.
much
Schlosser's
water?
assertion.
How much? You said it's going to be 0. It's going to be 2%.
No, I said we're planning for 0%. We talk about being conservative. That's the conservative way to do it. More studies published today about what the likelihood is for a wet winter this year. It's not very good. So given the fact that the reservoirs throughout the state are severely depleted, all of the surface water is severely parched, the first tens of millions of acre feet of precipitation that occurs in the state will be used to replenish the surface itself, the soil, and the reservoir conditions. Lake Oroville is at its lowest level in history. Lake Mead is about 6 feet away from being in the same condition. This is a mega drought. We're not in a 2-year drought. We're in a 12-year drought with a couple of wet years in the middle of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Eisler, I have a question for you. You said earlier, just in your comments, that we are an existing UNI customer, correct?
Correct.
So Sage Ranch is not a new customer to you, correct?
Well, That's correct. Those are new residents that are served by an existing customer.
But that's in the UNI, that's for the city, so it's the city's customers, not yours. Correct?
Correct. The city is our existing customer.
Right. Thank you. I just want to clarify that.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you. Sorry if I misspoke.
I have one more question, yes.
If I understand this correctly, we all need to turn off the lights and go home because we can never develop anything ever again. There is no water. Something else may happen, Armageddon, I don't know. But according to you and your figures, we will never be able to do anything in the future. Is that correct?
That is absolutely incorrect. Mr. Schlosser spoke about a growth rate. We have a regional urban water management plan in place that includes future growth. You can look around and see the things that are going on. I disagree with that assertion. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you for that.
If there's no more comment, perhaps close the hearing. I did want to.
Okay, if there are no more speakers, I am going to close the public hearing part of this, and we can have council discussion, or if you've had enough information, if you need any further clarification from staff on the presentation.
Can I make a suggestion to, I'm quite confident the applicant intends to dedicate the 175 acre feet they pledged. That's the purpose of the letter, I believe, if it's somewhat unclear. So it would be acceptable, I'm saying this and checking with the legal team here, that we simply add a condition of approval that the applicant would provide the 175 acre feet of pumpable water rights as a condition of approval. I presume that's acceptable to the applicant, and that would satisfy any of the district's concerns that perhaps the paperwork is somewhere less than where they think it needs to be. So I make that suggestion to you all.
All right. Any other questions from the council? All right, I'm ready to receive a motion to adopt the resolution of the Tehachapi City Council certifying the final environmental impact report, adopting findings pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, and adopting a mitigation monitoring and reporting program for the Sage Ranch Development Project, BD number 2019-01, and number 5, final master development plan.
I'll make that motion as recommended.
Well, I'm going to add the condition.
With the conditions noted that the applicant will be providing 175 acre feet of pumpable water. Yes. So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it, Mayor.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Williams?
Yes?
Councilmember Pellicard?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davies?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Yes.
It is a 4-1 vote with a recusal from Councilmember Scribner to adopt a resolution of the Tehachapi City Council certifying the final environmental impact report, state clearing House number 20190700009, adopting findings pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act and adopting a mitigation monitoring and reporting program for the Sage Ranch Development Project, PV number 2019-01, amendment number 5, the final master development plan, with the added condition of approval for the 175 pumpable water acre feet for the project.
Thank you. Item B, I would like a motion to approve the first reading and introduction of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Tehachapi approving plan development number 2019-01, Sage Ranch, subject to conditions of approval. Do I have a motion?
This would be by title only.
And read by title only. Do I have a motion to approve this ordinance?
I'll make that motion.
Introduce, I'm sorry.
I'll make that motion. We introduce ordinance, approve the first reading and introduction of the ordinance of the City Council of the City of Tehachapi approving the plan development number 2019-01 Sage Ranch, subject to conditions of approval.
That's correct. All right. Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Williams?
Yes?
Councilmember Pellicard?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davies?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Yes.
It was a 4-1 vote with a recusal from Councilmember Scribner subject to conditions of approval.
Thank you. Next item is to adopt, I need a motion to adopt a resolution of the Tehachapi City Council approving tentative tract map number 7366. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Liggins,
Yes?
Councilmember Covenport,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davies,
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes.
It was a 4-1 vote with a recusal from Councilmember Scribner to adopt a resolution of the Tehachapi City Council approving tentative tract map 7366.
Thank you all. Thank you for your time and patience. Thank you, staff. Thank you, our consultant, Travis, and our attorneys, everyone involved.
Don't forget to thank the attorney.
I just did.
Oh, you did?
I did. Thank you all. All right, city managers report.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. A couple things for you this evening. I would like to say a big thank you to all of the Cheers to Charity volunteers and participants at their annual fundraising event at Big Gator Park at the airport. It was very, very successful. I haven't heard how much money was raised. But all of those dollars go back into the community, into nonprofit hands, and they provide great services to our city and our entire community. So thank you to all of the participants in Cheers to Charity. Also, Mount Festival is this weekend. We're happy that the Chamber of Commerce is bringing the Mount Festival back after a hiatus last year due to COVID. So we're very excited about that. We're supporting it as best we can. Of course, we have the parade, 10 o'clock Saturday morning. There's the rodeo on Friday and Saturday nights. There's the arts and crafts in Central Park, and then Tehachapi Art Association has some crafting and railroad park, among many, many other things. So thank you to Ida, her board, and all the volunteers at the Chamber of Commerce in advance of the Great Mount Festival weekend. And I'd like to remind everybody that Coffee with the Mayor is back. So this Thursday will be our first Coffee with the Mayor in about a year and a half. So it's at the Coffee Mill, starts at 7:30 in the morning, goes until 9 o'clock, or until the last person that leaves would like to talk to Mayor Smith or council members or myself and staff. We're there, made ourselves available. We want to make sure that the citizens know exactly what we're doing and why we're doing it. So we appreciate your participation in the Coffee with the Mayor event this Thursday at 7:30. It's going to be the third Thursday of every month like it was pre-COVID. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Council member reports.
Yes, Mayor Smith, I'd like to make a comment. I'm sorry Corey Torres just left, but just wanted to tell you I heard a lot of positive comments about the Old Timers Picnic. Fortunately or unfortunately, it was my first time being there on my own, not on my wife's shirt tail. I had a great time, had a lot of positive comments, and a lot of people appreciated what the city, the donation the city made. Hopefully that we will keep involving that. I think it was well received by the thing, and the Parks and Rec did a great job, and all the many sponsors that did it. We have two right here. I know Stacy and Linda did. Thank you. Thank you. I know there's a lot more, but we had a great time. There's a great time by many people, and I've had a lot of comments, and I'm not shy when it comes to carrying a microphone, I guess I was told. So,
Really?
yeah. So, but I had a good time, and I think everybody else did, and my wife was proud, not too embarrassed, but I'd like to appreciate everybody on that. Thank you.
Susan?
I would just like, once again, thank staff and our partners and everyone. I have full confidence in our staff. I believe what you present to me, and I believe you represent the city in the greatest light. And I'm confident we'll be able to move forward.
And I'll have to do that with Susan. I went into Jay's office and I saw all the info that he's responsible for. He has it on his desk, he has it on the floor, and I thoroughly believe that they go through it very thoroughly so that we can make some wise decisions, and it's greatly appreciated, immensely. And also kudos on the old timers farmer's market, and hopefully the Mountain Festival will come off without any snags. And what do we have in the future? And that's about it. Thank you.
And I probably echo all of us. Sage Ranch, congratulations on this step. I think it's going to be a really milestone development within our city, something we can all be proud of. So appreciate the extra effort that's gone into this. It's more than just drawings and colorful drawings on paper. We're going to see the product, and I think it's going to really be good. But thank you all. Thank you, Jay. Thank you. So with that, we are going to go into closed session. And if there's anything to report, we will come back after and report. Thank you.